Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a great day. What makes a movie good? What goes into a movie being good? These are ideas that inform a lot of the content that I've done on this channel in the past, whether it's a really in-depth review or it's something where I'm talking about one topic with a movie. These areas really inform what I'm talking about with reviews. There's two big areas I think that a movie has to be successful in order for it to be a good movie. And one is the audiovisual space and the other is the story. You have to have a compelling audiovisual experience for a movie to be good. This is really important because a movie is an audiovisual experience. It is not a book. A book, the only visual experience is, the font choice and the cover. That's not an audiovisual experience. A comic book has visuals, but no audio. Only a movie is pulling them all together and affecting all of those senses. And if you're not using those senses and using them to good effect, then you really didn't need to make a movie, in my opinion. So having a compelling audiovisual experience is number one. If a movie's not able to have that, it's probably not a good movie. In fact, it won't be a good movie. Now, I'm using the word compelling here for a good reason. I'm not saying pleasing. I'm not saying good, however you want to experience that, or interesting or something like that, but compelling, meaning the viewer wants to continue viewing what's on the screen. He doesn't want to look away. He doesn't want to pull out a book. He doesn't want to have that visual experience on a second monitor while he plays World of Warcraft. I know lots of people have my videos on their second monitor when they're playing World of Warcraft. That's fine. This is mostly an auditory experience more than visual. Like you can see my hand gestures and my face. And so there's visuals, but they're less important than a movie, which is carefully crafting those visuals to be compelling. So compelling means the viewer wants to keep watching it and it's also affecting them in the correct way. If you think about a horror movie, that's producing a different kind of experience, I guess, than a drama or like a high concept fantasy or science fiction film. And it's towards a different intent and therefore the different effects work. So a horror movie is probably not giving you a pleasing audiovisual experience, but it's giving you the audiovisual experience you want from a horror movie, which it may include disgust, revulsion, fear. A lot of the negative emotions may be drawn out of that audiovisual experience for a horror movie. It's not pleasing, but it is compelling, and that's important. And I want to make a point that a compelling audiovisual experience is not necessarily one with a lot of things coming at your face, right? You wouldn't go to a museum and be like, the painting that was the brightest, had the brightest colors was the best painting. No, it's the painting that you want to look at the longest. So a great audiovisual experience has images and sounds that make the viewer want to continue viewing that movie. So The Godfather, for example, is a very compelling movie in its audiovisual storytelling. It's very, very good. It's very aesthetically pleasing. It has great sets, beautiful cinematography, great use of light, and of course, a great soundtrack, great sound design with the way the characters sound. And of course, there's a little bit of a crossover with the audiovisual space and the second area story, and that is with actors. The way the actors look is part of the visual experience. So good-looking actors that you want to pay attention to, actors who look maybe ugly, but the ugly is part of the story, like with an Elephant Man kind of story. That is part of the visual experience and therefore crosses over into the story area. These things are not completely separate, but they work together. If you don't have a compelling visual experience, you have to ask your question of whether that story should have been a movie, if it's not possible to have that visual experience. But a great movie will have those, and it doesn't necessarily have to be special effects flying at your face. That could be very compelling, visual in the visual and auditory space, but not necessarily. You can have a great scene of a great, setting, a really good couple of set pieces, some great looking actors sitting and talking, and it's mic'd correctly in an intimate and interesting way, where the audiovisual space is really compelling without having a lot of busy things to catch your attention to it. You pay attention because of the way the things are correctly framed, the way the cinematography works. So no, you don't have to have a big concept sci-fi film for it to be good and for it to be compelling in the audiovisual space, or to even be like a 10 out of 10 visual film. There's many ways to achieve that in many different genres. So I want to make that point. So if we kind of shift focus, transition over to the other big area, which is story. If you don't have a story that's worth telling, the movie can't be good. It could be mediocre, it could be on the higher side of bad, maybe, but if the story sucks, your movie can't be good, as far as I'm concerned. And that's because even though it's an audiovisual experience, it's also a storytelling medium. Therefore, the story needs to be present and needs to be good. And when these two things work together, you have an amazing experience, which is, some of the best kind of story experiences you can have could be in the cinema if all of these things are working correctly. So the story side of it, what do I think of in terms of the divisions of the story? All the things I talk about on the channel: setting, characters, and plot. Do we understand the setting, the place that the story is taking place in? Is that interesting and compelling? Are the characters compelling characters? Are they characters you want to pay attention to? Are they characters whose motivations you care about and whose goals you want to see either succeed or fail, depending on the goal and the character? And then plot. Is there a coherent and meaningful event sequence that leads from the beginning, where a conflict is established, a problem that has to be solved, to the end when we resolve everything and kind of bring everything together? If those elements aren't there, you probably don't have a good movie. Now, I'm softening this a little bit with the word probably, because if you're really creative, you can do things that are outside the normal realm of expectations for any of these elements and produce a compelling experience. If you think about a movie like The Thin Red Line, that could be a compelling experience, even though there's not much in the way of story. We don't really have a conflict or a resolution, or rather the conflict and the resolution are really buried in the message and the subtext of the movie, and not kind of up front, where like there's a direct problem that the characters have to directly solve, like in Star Wars or one of these other kind of blockbuster flicks. So yeah, you got to have a story that's good and a story that makes sense for the viewer. Ideally, these things work together to produce a great cinema effect. You have a conflict you care about, and you have characters who you like are trying to solve that conflict, thus creating a meaningful series of events that proceed logically one from the other to either resolve that conflict or have the characters fail to some other end that can also be interesting. You don't have to have a happy ending for a movie for it to be good. You can have a sad ending. You can have the characters fail. All of those like more tragic endings have a great impact for the viewer as well. So the main word that I talk about a lot is compelling, and the other main word is effective. Compelling means that the person wants to continue paying attention. They're interested in what is happening and they care about it, rather than it being interesting because it's perverse or something like that. It has to compel someone on a deeper level. They have to actually care about the things that are happening on screen, and therefore the story really has to inform a lot of the visuals. It's not just like helicopters exploding can be stimulating, but it's more compelling if we see the helicopter exploding because it has a character on it that we like and we're witnessing their death. That's going to have a much bigger impact than just a random helicopter exploding on screen, if you get my point with all of that. So the other one is effective. And effective just means that the movie is having an effect on the viewer. The viewer is feeling things or responding to the movie. And I've talked about this with like the pyramid of effect. There's immediate reactions like a jump scare. That's effective on one level. And then there's kind of caring about the characters and their motivations is another level of effective storytelling. And the last one, the highest level, is the thematic element. What is this story trying to say? What deeper thing about humanity or God or lack of God or whatever its message is? What's the deeper thing that's going on in the story? And is that compelling? Is that interesting? Does that make the reader stop, or not the reader, but the viewer stop and think about the movie? So I have that reacting, feeling, and then thinking at the top. You react. Oh, the shark popped out of the water or whatever it is. You feel, I don't want these characters to die. I want them to succeed. I want the guy to get the girl. I want the girl to nail the hot guy or whatever. I want the characters to succeed at something. I feel for them. I care about them. And the highest level is thinking, what is this story about? What's it telling me? What does it say about society? What does it say about me? What does it say about any of the subjects that are there? That's the thematic element. It makes you stop and think. So a really great movie will have a really compelling visual experience, a really compelling auditory experience that supports that, a great soundtrack with great sets, great looking actors. That's enough for a compelling visual experience. And the better you do those things, the better it's going to turn out. Paired with a story that works with all of that, with setting, characters, and plot that make you react in some cases, will make you feel for the characters, and then will make you think about the story and what it means on a deeper level. So that's what makes a great movie to me. Leave me your thoughts down below about what the qualifications are for a good movie. Now, a movie could be mediocre and be bad at these, right? You could have a movie that has a great audiovisual experience and has a really bad story. Is it a bad movie? It's on the edge, right? You can't really say it's good because the story is garbage. But you could have a movie that has an amazing visual experience and an okay story, and it's still a good movie, in my opinion. Or, a really great story and the visual experience is kind of meh, or there's not like a very good, the sound experience isn't particularly good. You could still end up saying it's a good movie. And in some cases, you can have an auditory experience that is compelling because of what it lacks, like in No Country for Old Men, where there's not really a score. It's very sparse as far as the sound goes, and that has an effect as well. Or these moments in something like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where there's long stretches of silence or characters looking at each other without saying anything. Is that compelling? Yeah, it can be because of what we lack, which is the sound of what they're doing, the talking, right? What is missing can sometimes be very compelling as long as it's framed correctly. So I guess my point there is that there's no hard and fast rule, like it must have this, but rather mastery will include all of these things and use them to great effect, whether it's silence or it's noise. How you frame it can have a big impact on the viewer. Same thing with all the story elements that we talked about. So anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. I'll see you next time. You can get my book, Keys to Prolific Creativity, on Amazon, or you can actually get it for free if you're a member of the channel or you join me on Patreon. So have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.